What they don't tell you is that if you want to go clear, which is what Dianetics sells, that's a $35,000 to $75,000 project. You don't know that. So there's your first bait and switch. You buy a $3 book, and it's going to cost you $50 to $75 grand.
Some Scientologists pay even larger sums to move from Dianetics onto Scientology's more advanced spiritual pathway, the Bridge to Total Freedom. The Bridge contains a series of levels designed to increase your spiritual powers.
Once you go clear, they say, well, forget about that. You need to go spiritually free. Well, hang on, I just got in to get rid of the mind. Now you tell me I've got to go spiritually free? And there's another switch. But they don't tell you that's going to cost you as well. And there's this whole route all the way through the top. Oh, that'll run you 150 to 250 grand.
How much did you spend in all?
Well, prior to the marriage and with the marriage, I would say a total between my wife and I at the time, maybe $400,000 to $500,000.
I'll just stack these in here.
Okay, when you shift our roll, I start stacking.
One Australian family who fell foul of the hard sell were the Andersons from Canberra. Now they've left the church, this is their third trip to the rubbish tip to offload their stock of Scientology materials.
Many thousands of dollars, eh?
I have the tips open today.
As public Scientologists trying to master the teachings of L. Ron Hubbard, they found themselves deluged with phone calls asking them to buy more and more of his books.
Well, they might. It'll be too late.
We were receiving up to 250 phone calls a fortnight to buy books. If not to buy books, to donate books. If not to donate books, it's to buy a second set, you know?
It is an enormous commercial enterprise, isn't it?
No, it's a religion. It's a large international religion that you know is exactly that, a religion.
But it makes an awful lot of money.
Well, the church is definitely the beneficiary of its parishioners and people who feel strongly about their religion and choose to give back to it and give to the planet as a result.
What many parishioners never discover, unless they pay to work their way up the bridge, is that L. Ron Hubbard, a prolific author of science fiction, wrote a secret scripture in 1967. In it, he describes how an evil intergalactic warlord called Xenu visited Earth millions of years ago, and the spirits or body thetans of people he killed are the cause of many of mankind's spiritual ills.
I was one of the first people who was introduced to and read the materials and was expected to start exorcising these body thetans, the body spirits, from my body. I couldn't believe the material, yet I knew I had to for my own survival and for my own eternal salvation.
By 1985, Scientology's elite unit, the Sea Org, was back on dry land, and Joe Reish joined up in Florida to work for the church full-time. There, he married a fellow Scientologist.
How much were you paid?
At the time, I was paid $20 a week.
Bit of a come down from your football days.
Exactly. I mean, the hourly rate was into the maybe 12 to 15 cents an hour, but you know, at that time we didn't consider it because we were getting fed. We had some birthing, despite the fact that it wasn't the greatest. We felt that we were at least contributing to something.
Everyone who joins the Sea Org signs a contract for 1 billion years, making a commitment to return and serve the church for endless lifetimes to come. Joe Reish was the go-to man when wealthy donors who were disillusioned with Scientology wanted their money back.
I was their #1 boy in Florida for doing all of these, let's call it resolutions and solving those problems.
In 1986, Joe Reish and his wife took steps to leave the Sea Org. Later, they divorced, but they and their children remained Scientologists. For 19 years, Joe Reish had jobs outside the church, often as a personal fitness trainer. Privately, he started questioning the church.
I had mentioned various things that I had some disagreements with, to someone, like, why is it so expensive? And then that person would write a report about that and send it in.
Joe Risch knew he had a fight on his hands. In 2005, he was summoned to an internal inquiry called a Committee of Evidence, where the secret internal reports on him were disclosed. He was accused of entering into bad investment deals and breaking the rules of the church. But he says he wasn't allowed to see the reports, call witnesses, or have any kind of legal representation. Months later, the committee handed down its final report, shown here for the first time.
I went through this 7 or 8 page report that just basically listed out all of my crimes. Where they accused me of things that I said I wasn't guilty, they said, you're guilty, and here's the evidence. But the evidence was from those reports that were hearsay.
Joe Risch was declared a suppressive person and expelled from the church. But when he picked up the phone to call his children, he couldn't get through.
No response. I called again, no response. And then I realized, oh my God, here's what they did. They already had me declared a suppressive person. They told everyone else, including my children. I cried. I was sad, it's my kids. But you don't do that to a parent. You don't do that. And so.
Did you talk to your kids after that?
Mm-hmm.
A spokesperson for the children told Four Corners that claiming that the Church of Scientology is the reason for a disconnection from his children does not tell the entire story. Joe decided long before 2005, by his own actions, to separate himself from his family, an assertion that Joe Risch denies.
Why was Joe Risch declared a suppressive person?
I have no idea. It's news to me. I actually know Joe Risch. I remember meeting him many years ago. He was somebody that I knew personally when I first started working for the church. In fact, I had no idea he'd even been expelled from the church.
But once you expel someone from the church, you tell that person's family inside the church to have nothing to do with them.
No, that is not the case. Specifically what you're referring to is if somebody is expelled from the church, anybody who insists on continuing to be connected to somebody who's been expelled from the church would be told that as long as they maintain that connection, they're not welcome in the church, because a church, any organization, and particularly a church like other churches, has a right to not welcome in its ranks people who are supporting or connected to people who are attacking the church and mean the church harm.
Well, that's the last time I saw her, actually.
In Australia, other families have experienced the intense pain of disconnection from their children in the church. Liz Anderson hasn't seen her eldest child Fiona since 2005, when she was posted overseas from Sydney to work in the Sea Org in Clearwater, Florida. Now all she has left are these few mementos of Fiona's childhood.
The Tigers Netball Club.
Look, she's a beautiful girl. I mean, and she's mine. I don't know.